Hello and welcome to Curated Spaces, the podcast that explores the stories behind the spaces reimagining how we stay, work and play. Join me, Molly Cooper, as I sit down with founders, owners and thought leaders to hear about their journey of bringing a space to life. Great spaces shape our lives. They inspire, nurture and connect us. But most importantly, they bring us together to share life's milestones with the people who mean the most to us. So, whether you're a traveller, foodie or design seeker, join us as we celebrate the power of spaces and the brilliant people behind them. Today I'm at Heckfield Place, a beautifully restored piece of English history in the heart of the Hampshire countryside. Not only is this space as close to perfect as interiors can be, but its whole philosophy is rooted in slowing down and living in tune with nature's surroundings. And I'm incredibly excited to welcome Skye Gyngell to the podcast, who's been at Heckfield for over 12 years now.
Hello. Yes, no, I have. I mean, you just asked me a few minutes ago and I was like, I had to stop and, you know, when I realised it's 12 years, it's gone so quickly though.
Yeah, it always
It's incredible. I mean, this last decade for me has gone, and because spring is about to turn, is 10 this year as well.
Yeah.
And everything feels like it was 2 or 3 years.
I know, well, things always do. And there's also that now we've got that, was it pre-COVID or post-COVID, that sort of marker, which
that
everything
huge
else.
And confusion as well, sort of a marker, but it's so blurry.
Yeah. Oh my
isn't it?
gosh, I know. Well, it's such a delight to be here today with you.
It's lovely to have you here.
And I can't wait to get into the story behind Heckfield, but I'd love to start with you first of all and hear about your journey in spring and all the rest of it.
Okay, I mean, well, how far do you want to go back, or what?
As far as you want to.
Okay, well, I've actually, I'm from Australia,
Yes.
so I grew up in Sydney, which was lovely. It was a really lovely childhood, and I've actually lived in London now for over 40 years, which seems another absolutely extraordinary thing. And I have been cooking for over 40 years as well. So I actually originally left Australia to go and work in Paris. And I've never really lived there again, although all my family's sort of there. And so I've got hugely strong ties and deep affection and connection with Australia. So I've been cooking for so long now, it's kind of crazy. And, you know, my career, because I guess it's been really long, I've done lots of things, you know, everything from kind of like cooking in restaurants, obviously, and then teaching, writing, kind of some event work and stuff. And it's been amazing. And I've really, really seen the industry change tremendously in 40 years I've been in it. And I've been here for 12 years, and I came and worked for the owner of Heckfield, where we are now, 12 years ago. And it was when I left Petersham Nurseries, where before that I was there for 10 years before I came here.
Love Petersham Nurseries.
It's
but
lovely.
Quite a good CV, don't you, Skye? Yeah.
I think I've been really lucky.
Yeah.
And I also feel like I've been incredibly lucky, especially not always in my earlier part of my career, but certainly like the last 20 years. I've been really lucky to work in incredibly beautiful environments. Like Petersham obviously was a very inspiring place to work, and here is incredibly beautiful. And also actually having a restaurant in Somerset House, which is also such a beautiful building. So I know I'm very lucky. I get to go and work in places that are very beautiful every day.
Very good for the soul, I can imagine.
Really nice. And it's actually also an incredible treat if you work in kitchens, because very often they can be below ground. It's strip lighting, you know, but Petersham's kitchen was beautiful because it was like an old garden shed, and so we just looked out onto this kind of beauty. We could see it was like the inside was out sort of thing. And I've also got a really beautiful kitchen at Spring with huge windows and lots of daylight and stuff. So it's really nice.
That's lovely. And speaking of beautiful things, here we are looking out another lovely big window, looking down to the lake at Heckfield Place. It's so picturesque, so tucked away in quiet Hampshire countryside. Would you be able to paint a little bit of a picture for people listening in about where we are in the world?
Yes, okay. I think we're on the officially probably on the Hampshire-Berkshire border, aren't we?
Very diplomatic.
It's sort of Jane Austen country.
Yes.
probably about 50 minutes from London, so quite close to London, relatively speaking. And the actual house sits on just over 460 hectares of land, which is really lovely. And it's very interesting land because it's quite flat around here. But we've been so blessed because there was a very kind of well-known gardener, a man called William Wildsmith, who was the head gardener here when the house was originally built, and they planted a really extensive arboretum. So there's some really old trees on this estate and some really beautiful and very unusual trees as well. And we actually, it's lovely because we've got a whole forestry program here. So we're taking saplings and raising them and stuff like that. So that kind of work's continuing, which is really nice. The house itself is Georgian. It's got, the hotel's got 47 bedrooms. I think it could be 46, but I think it's 47. And it was a really big restoration project, actually. So although I have been working here and with the owner for the last 12 years, it really only opened 5 years ago. It was a real labor of love, a very personal journey for him as well. And he was in no hurry to open. He really wanted to get it right. So, and so I think you can really see that from the house. It's, I don't know how you feel about it. We always wanted it to be very, I don't think we ever put ourselves against, or he certainly didn't put himself, he didn't want to compare himself to any other hotel. He wanted to create something that felt an expression of who he was and what was important to him. And we're really lucky because he's a great collector of art. And so the whole house is full of his personal art, which is really nice. And we also have a market garden and farm. So we have a 5-hectare market garden where all our fruit and vegetables come from, and that is biodynamic. We did the conversion process and received organic status in 2018, and then it took another year to receive biodynamic status. And so that's lovely. And we've got an orchard of 400 trees. And so we've got quinces, plums, apples, pears. We grow all of, probably about 80% of what we serve here in the hotel is from the market garden. But we also have a little bit of meat. We have lamb and we have all chickens. All our eggs come from there. We've got a dairy of 37 a beautiful Guernsey cow, so all the milk is that you served in the hotel is from there. We make our butter, yogurts, some young cheeses. So we're very, very lucky. We've got honey. So it's really, really lovely. And it's a very nice place to work and cook because you feel so connected to the land, the immediacy of the earth outside, which is really beautiful.
And you just said, I want to know how it feels to you, but this is my first time coming, and there's this real sort of grounding feeling. It's this beautiful palette of like muted, neutral tones. Everything's beautifully done. There's loads of, it's Christmas, so there's beautiful dry flower arrangements. And then again, Nicole was just telling me about this philosophy, this whole idea of being in tune with the surroundings, slowing down, biodynamics. It feels like the whole thing is incredibly well thought together in this beautiful sort of, like you just said, self-sufficient. You really lean on your own market gardens. You really are rooted and hunkered down in this part of the world. And it feels incredibly, like I said, calming, grounding, and sort of with intention almost.
I think definitely, and actually all the Christmas decorations and things that you see. So we grow all the flowers for the hotel down at the farm as well, which is beautiful. And then we dry them in the winter. So all the dried flowers and the Christmas decorations are all made from flowers that have been grown on the farm, which is really lovely. And I do think there's a huge amount of intention here. And I think I think certainly the owner, Dr. Chan, I think he always wanted it to be a place of reflection and for it to feel kind of restorative. And it's definitely, it's got a calming and quiet effect here. I don't think it's not a party hotel, I wouldn't say. It's kind of sort of a kind of hotel to kind of sit by the fire and curl up with a really, really good book and have a really good walk. And sleep really well and eat really well.
The main things we all come away to do.
Yeah, I think it's really in that sort of way of, and we always really wanted to make it feel like it was your house that you were coming to, or you'd been invited to someone's, house, and it felt very personal. It's like all the public spaces are very personal. And we do an afternoon tea, which is like one of my favorite things. And we just do one cake that we bake, and we put it out at 4:00 by the fire, and you go and help yourself to a slice. And so it sort of feels like it's not like a huge kind of afternoon tea offering. It's just one kind of really beautiful homemade. They're quite old fashioned. The cake, we kind of tend to do like, walnut cakes and like really classic kind of English afternoon tea cakes, ginger cakes. And that's really nice. And the food is, the food offering is quite pared back as well, which is really nice.
Oh, it's so, you were saying the cake by the fire, and we just mentioned Jane Austen country, but that's, I'm getting such, are we just actually, have we stepped back 200 years and we're in one of, in Mansfield Park or wherever, and this beautiful sort of, it's a very modern interpretation of these big old homes, and it still has that sense of home. It hasn't become a hotel.
Yeah.
It feels more like someone's home they've opened up for people to stay and enjoy, and I think that's incredibly special.
Well, I think that was always the intention. It was to feel like you could make yourself completely at home. Yeah.
And in terms of bringing it to life then, you said it was a bit of a project.
Yeah.
Did Dr. Shan, did he have this vision from day one, or was it something that went through evolutions? And
I definitely think it was probably a huge journey for him. I think he bought the actual estate quite some time before he started the kind of refurbishment or restoration of it. And I think he really loved the land.
Yeah.
And so I think he kind of sat with it quietly for quite a while, and it was run as a sort of little hotel in a way, but I think it was probably quite old fashioned and a bit of sort of fuddy-duddy, almost a conference centre, not quite. But, and I think he just really sort of sat and thought, let it kind of wash over him. And it did evolve. And I think there were lots of kind of, he's a very curious human being, which I always think is one of his loveliest qualities. Yeah. And he took advice from lots of different people, and he talked, and then I think he just found the thing that felt really right for him. I mean, it definitely is a very personal project for him, and that's been really nice. It's very nice to work on something that is so personal and means something that's so it means something, you know what I mean? Which definitely has been really he's really nice to work with. I really enjoy.
Always makes a difference.
Yeah, huge difference.
And so then when you joined, how far along that journey was it?
I think it was sort of like, definitely they had the idea of sort of giving it it was time to sort of like update it a little bit. And I think that they were going to open it. They did want to kind of like change I suppose where it sat in the landscape in terms of a hotel. And so, but it was very different because we didn't have the interior designer who ended up working with Gerald on the project. He wasn't engaged yet. So it wasn't formed like this in any way. It was just they knew that they wanted to like turn it into a kind of a more sort of glamorous hotel than it was. But I think the direction was still evolving when I came on board. Okay,
interesting. And then how did that happen? Obviously, you come from this sort of foodie background. How did the two sort of go together? Was it this marrying of food and interiors and all the rest of it? Or was it sort of done in parallel and then sort of came together down the line?
Probably in parallel. Like, I think, I think I was very lucky too, because we're very aligned in terms of the food he likes to eat and stuff. So I had a very free reign with that, which was really nice. And I don't think I could have. I think I've sort of worked too long and had too much freedom in my career to have had to have come and fitted a brief. Okay. Really, I think that would have been hard for me. And he loved. I mean, we had this tiny little farm down there, but it wasn't really growing anything, and it wasn't organic. The farm itself had been fairly kind of conventionally farmed, so it had a lot of grain on the land and stuff. And so I was like, and I've worked with a farmer called Jane Austen, who's a biodynamic farmer in the Black Hills of Herefordshire for the last kind of over a decade, and she grows and provides everything for us at Spring. We have a kind of unique relationship there. And I asked if she could come on board and we could convert this to organics and biodynamics. And he was very open to that, which was really nice. And I think we've really seen the benefits. I mean, it's been a lot. It's taken a really, really long time the soil was very depleted when we started working on it. And I think you'll see that in a lot of farms that have been kind of fairly conventionally farmed. And it's a clay soil down here. It's full of pebbles. And so it's been a real process to get the soil healthy again. And that's probably taken maybe 7 years. And then the whole organic and biodynamic process is a whole other thing that you have to do. So, but he was really up for it, which was really nice. And then I think because of what we grow, and obviously we've got the dairy and the orchards and stuff, I think that really informs the food program here, because we really try and just take as much as possible from what's from the land.
Yeah, I love that, being led by the surroundings, by the seasons, not imposing your vision onto nature.
And you know, the thing with farms is you've got to, it's been a really tough year, you know, and I think for all farms in the UK, and I think it's a real combination of climate change, but also it was very wet, and so it was a very late season. We really didn't see anything coming from the land probably until the very end of July or August. So we had this huge chunk of the beginning of the year when there was very, very little. But and some years you have good years and some years you have bad years. You always think with farming, it's always best laid plans. So you've got all the good intentions in the world, and then, you know, nature gets in the way. And especially when you're farming in a kind of in a much more kind of natural way.
I really love that, and it's quite humbling actually, because you have this beautiful, very high-end hotel, and actually you're still being led by the most humble, the ground, the seasons, and like refusing to just outsource, ship it all in, but actually remaining really loyal to your local land and your own ability to produce that food. I think that's really amazing.
Well, it's a very creative way to work, because it's a very you know, it's, I mean, I know it sounds funny and it's sort of almost counterintuitive in a way, where you think that if I had like this huge selections of thousands and thousands of things to work with, imagine how creative I could be. But I think we actually find that we've got this very narrow, small amount of things to work with. And it actually sort of, I find it kind of pushes you deeper. I mean, for example, always in winter, you know, nothing is, so I guess the land at the moment would look like a giant freezer, really. So you've got kind of cabbages, things that will happily stay in the ground because almost they're sitting in a refrigerator, so they'll stay for a really long time. There aren't really any root vegetables, you know, they're all, I mean, things like apples and pears and plums, we think they're winter fruit, but they're actually late summer fruit. So you harvest at the end of August, early September is when all the apple harvests come, and then you store them for the winter months, you know, in apple crates and apple boxes. But there's and root vegetables the same. You can put them in root stores, but they're not actually particularly growing from the ground. You get some lovely we've got some lovely lettuces at the moment, really the cold winter lettuces, which we call winter leaves, which are often the kind of the ones that you would know as radicchios and stuff, the bitter, which are beautiful leaves, but really just that, and some brassicas and cabbages. So, you know, and there's a million different forms of brassicas, you know, so there's collard greens and hispy cabbage and red cabbage and Savoy cabbage. But, you know, like sometimes you look at our menu and it's like, there's some cauliflower, that's really coming to the end, a bit of broccoli, and there's some carrots and parsnips and maybe some Jerusalem artichokes. But literally you've probably got about 8 vegetables to sort of really work with. And so, but actually, I mean, they've all got beautiful different flavors, and we find a way to make it work. But, you know, you will, if you really look closely at our menu, it's very full of, there's a Savoy cabbage there, and there's a collard green there.
You like cabbage if you're coming at this time.
I hope you like cabbage, and obviously in the summer we have a lot more choice, you know, but it's a short season. So
and that's brilliant, isn't it? It's like, also, it's one of those houses where today the greens we're sat in one of the bedrooms, and it's this very calm, sagey green, looking out over, we said, the lake and the grounds, again, this sort of green, browns, like carries outside. Then I imagine you come back in summer and it's sun, and you've got all the gardens overflowing, the flowers blooming, the Italian terrace must be like in full sun all day. I imagine it's an incredibly different feeling from tucked away.
I think it is. Well, I think it's a lot. You're absolutely right. I mean, you've got this really lovely view here, haven't you, from the lake room, and you can see all the lakes and the trees, and there's kind of a lot of bracken between the trees and stuff. So there's kind of these very autumnal, wintry kind of sludgy tones, really. And I guess the house is a bit like that as well. And it's mainly full of dried flowers now because we don't grow any flowers don't really grow in the winter. A few paper whites and narcissi and stuff, but not a lot. But in the summer, then you've got like, we always call it tulip fever because we grow, I think we probably plant about 30, maybe more, 1,000 tulip bulbs.
Wow.
And we have really unusual and beautiful varieties. So we have about 3 weeks in sort of like April, May. I mean, you never can tell exactly when they're going to come. We need the sun and everything. But when the house is just full of tulips and it looks amazing. And then obviously you move into, like in the September, I mean, then they just, then you've got sweet peas and then we go, because flowers are actually as seasonal as fruit and veg in this country. And when you work completely seasonally with flowers, you have these amazing gifts, like when the sweet peas first come, they're incredible. And then you obviously have, peonies and lilacs and then the roses in the summer. And then you sort of tumble into kind of all the dahlias kind of come mid-September, and then they take you through to kind of November and then stop.
Yeah. I've got a newfound love for dahlias, actually. I started recording these episodes in sort of late September onwards, and I'd go to all these beautiful gardens, and the gardeners were always like, oh, it's a shame you're coming now. You should have been here 3 weeks ago and it was in full bloom, and now there's just dahlias left.
Well, it's funny. They've definitely, I think they were a real grandmother's flower for a while. And then now I feel like they've had a huge resurgence 100%. In the kind of probably last decade or so. And then you get those kind of the Babylon dahlias and stuff with the huge heads. And I mean, I adore them. They don't last long cut. Unfortunately, they get kind of ragged around the thing, but they are so beautiful. And as you cut them, they're a bit like a sweet pea. They just come again. So you get a lot of bang for your buck.
Love that.
From one plant, which is really nice.
Excellent. Worth investing in.
Totally. I always put dahlias in my garden because you can have cut flowers are really long. The more you cut them, the more they'll come again until the end of the season.
They keep coming back.
Yeah.
Love that. And then talking on that sort of seasonal shift, how does the house itself get used for different seasons? Do people always come here to relax, or is it more people come here in the sun to gather, to eat, to drink, or is it kind of...
I think I would say it's pretty consistent throughout the whole year. And I think a lot of people, I mean, obviously you use a house and land in a different way when the sun shines from when it rains. And so the winter's a lot more about putting the fires on and curling up on the sofa. And I think the summer is, and this, late spring and summer is much more about opening all the windows, and especially downstairs, and sort of everybody going outside. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that lake, which is, we do have a really beautiful spa here called the Bothy, which has an indoor swimming pool. But people swim in the lakes.
Amazing.
And in the winter, and I did it actually they do cold water immersion. Have you ever done that?
Well, I was in Norfolk last week, and I was at this place with a floating sauna on a lake.
Oh,
and I was like, well, I'll definitely go in the sauna. I'm not very good at cold water. And I befriended someone in the sauna who was like, you have to get in the lake.
Yeah.
So anyway, she got me in the lake, and it was amazing, but so cold.
It's an amazing feeling, isn't it?
Afterwards, that like, I just felt so high on life.
I know. It's so, I mean, I did it too once, and they said, come on, you're going to go and do it. And I was like, I am not doing that. Like, I'm Australian and I love the water, but I'm not going in. Like, I'm not a Cornish swimmer.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a fair weather. I like kind of a bit of warmth. And it was absolutely freezing. Yeah. And I think my feet were cold for the rest, about 8 hours afterwards. But my head, I felt absolutely incredible. Yeah.
It's amazing. And like the tingles. So good.
The clarity.
Yes.
Yeah. So lots of people do that here, actually. And then in the summer, they also, it's actually divine. There's two lakes there. I think you can only see one from here, but there's a lower lake as well. And we've got this really lovely pontoon.
Oh my gosh, gorgeous.
And you can go and kind of take a picnic down there. And it's got this lovely little bit of grass. And you just can dive into the pond and hang out there all afternoon.
That sounds heavenly.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to come back and see you in the summer.
You definitely will. Yeah, it's really nice here, actually. Yeah. And we eat outside a lot more. And hearth goes outside a lot more. There's a beautiful terrace and people are just sort of, so I guess it still has the same energy and the same sort of restorative nature, but I guess it's just because we're so much about the estate here, really, that it's we're kind of very influenced by what's happening on the estate.
Yeah, well, I love that, and good segue actually into my next question, which was going to be about around the whole biodynamics, because it's the big 100-year anniversary next year in 2024.
It is. So so 2024 is the 100-year anniversary of biodynamics, and for those people who don't know, because I think a lot of people say what it is or they've heard of it and they think it's a little bit kind of woo or a bit strange. It was actually founded by Rudolf Steiner, and it comes from a series of 6 lectures that were given in one day in 1924, and it came as a result of a lot of farmers and people who work the land having seen the kind of huge rise in industrialization, and that they'd seen that their soil had been felt depleted and the earth just didn't seem quite as healthy. So it's actually based on a lunar calendar, and it's so you have fruits and flower days, and you're very governed by lunar cycles, which probably does sound a bit strange, but then if you really think about it, the whole world was always traditionally governed by the sun and the moon, wasn't it? You know, and as human beings as well, you know, you'd get up when the sun rose and you went to bed when the sun went down. And so it's just really kind of tuning into that. And, you know, I think there are many ways to practice, you know, soil health is incredibly important, and small farms like the farm we have here, or, you know, lovely small organic farms, or whether they're practicing permaculture or organics or biodynamics, or, you know, if you fall into any of those categories, you'll probably find biodiversity within them, because it's you're planting little and often and lots of different things, and that creates biodiversity. It's the big monocrops that sort of deplete biodiversity in a way. And they're really good little carbon sequesters. So they're incredibly easy wins environmentally. And even we have a dairy here, and I know there's a lot of, I mean, I personally think animals are an incredibly important part of a farm. Yes. They're an integral part to fertilization. And the Americans say you've got to keep poop in the loop. And it is really, and these little farms are very good carbon sequesters. You know, we have a very small herd, and they kind of roam the land freely, and they poo and they eat and they fertilize the whole of the land. And so they're actually very good for the environment. I mean, it's the amount of meat we eat and the kind of feedlots and the way, it's the industrialization of food, 100%. Which is the real problem. And so I love that. It feels very good to be part of a kind of, you know, 460 hectares of organic, good, clean soil with a healthy microbiome, and which is good for the environment. That feels very positive. And we're completely single-use plastic free here, and we have a big biomass center. And so we really try and be as sustainable as possible. That's really important. And the land, the stewardship of the land is very important to us, and especially to the owner.
It sounds like a very sort of almost going back to Jane Austen, who knew we were talking so much about her today, sort of going back in time almost approach to when people had a house and they had their land and they cared for it and they lived off it. Yeah. It's, you know, going back to the basics, to the way we've always lived and farmed and eaten until...
Well, especially big houses. Exactly. I mean, our farm's actually called home farm.
Okay.
But I mean, a lot of those big houses had what were always called home farms. Yeah. So the farms that actually on the estates that actually fed everybody who worked on the estates, the big houses, and they're almost these little self-sufficient. Yeah. So I guess it is like that. And I think it's sometimes, I think you have to be very forward thinking as well, though. I mean, what we're doing is really good, but obviously you can go backwards, but we need to embrace, there's lots of quite incredible kind of farm technology that's coming out. So I think we have to really embrace the new, as well as, definitely. There's some incredible kind of computerized weeding systems that work on steam. And so I think I'm also very interested in like moving forward and how do
amazing.
you use technology in a positive way for kind of soil health. So it is, I guess it is like going back in time to a little bit of a quieter time, but feel like we're also looking to the future.
Embracing that.
And also protecting the land for future generations.
Very holistic with the moon as well. It's sort of, you old, new, moon cycles, the rest of it. I love
it is. It's very nice in the Bothy as well. The spa's all on kind of slow time, and it has, actually we grow everything. We grow all the tisanes and the teas and everything for the down at the farm. And we grow, there's a beautiful skincare line that is attached to the hotel, and it's called wellSmith after the gardener I was talking about, William Wildsmith. And a lot of the products that go into the wild, it's a completely natural organic beauty product, and a lot of the stuff we grow down at the farm.
Amazing.
All the calendulas, all the kind of lavenders and stuff are all grown down there.
I love a bit of lavender, mate.
Yeah, I know. It's lovely. Yeah.
Oh, well, talking about looking ahead then.
Yeah.
What does the next chapter of Heckfield Place look like?
Well, we're always kind of, we're always looking to kind of move forward. I mean, this year the spa opened, which was like a big thing for us. And we've got lots of kind of projects that we want to do down at the farm. We want to open it up more. We do like produce sales every second weekend, and we want to increase that. And we want to do a growing course down there. So, I mean, I think it's very important for young people to return to the land, and we want to grow growers for the future, which is really important. And I definitely see a lot of young people and a lot of young chefs that I work with are very engaged with, they care where their food comes from, and they want to be engaged with small farms that are working to secure the future of food. And so lots of little projects. You know, I've had a personally really busy year because we do I did Chelsea Flower Show this year, and we did the Serpentine Party, and we do Freeze Masters every year. We put a restaurant in there, so like we're pretty busy and quite maxed out. But always, I think really rather than we're not looking to grow an empire. We're just trying to I think it's just always working to make this the best that it can be.
Yeah. And I think what a lovely thing to be focusing on, not just grow, but actually just making a great thing really, really great.
We're definitely not interested in growing a huge portfolio. That's not what this is about at all. It's about being small and beautiful.
Yeah. I love that. Being quite a small person. I'll take that. And then it's been so lovely to chat. I always have a closing tradition though.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you 3 questions.
Okay.
You're going to imagine you've just cashed the winning lottery check.
Wow.
And you let me know what space comes to mind for you. So number 1 is, where are you running away to disconnect and to detox?
If I won the lottery, I would buy a little weatherboard cottage up the north coast of New South Wales. I'd love something at home. As I get older too, I really, I've always said I don't want to have old, cold bones. And I would dream of being up the north coast of New South Wales, somewhere in a tiny little weatherboard cottage, not a big house, with a vegetable garden.
That sounds heavenly. Yeah. Lots of gardening, walking.
Lots of gardening, lots of walking, lots of sun, warmth. On my skin,
Oh, it's so nice and warm and cozy in here, but it's chilly outside.
It is,
that's really speaking to me
and
today.
I grew up in a warm climate, and I do miss that.
Yeah, maybe time to go home at some point.
Yeah.
Next one's slightly different. Your ultimate birthday party. Where are you hosting it?
Oh God, my ultimate birthday party would be in my bed with like a cake from Marchese, a princess cake from Marchese. And a little teaspoon, and I'd like to eat a whole cake all on my own.
No one's ever said a party for one yet, but you are allowed that. It sounds fantastic.
I love alone time, and I feel like my life is. I talk to people so much, and I replenish through quiet time.
Yeah, I love that for you.
Yeah, no, I love that. My God, under my duvet, maybe with something really great on Netflix. And a princess cake all to myself in a teaspoon.
I always get quite stressed about New Year's plans this time of the year, and actually maybe that's what I'll do on New Year's.
I mean, give up on New Year because it's always just
so stressful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Cake, spoon, bed, done.
Yeah.
And then finally, your once in a lifetime bucket list trip. Where are you going, and are you staying anywhere special?
Gosh, my bucket list. I don't know. Isn't that funny? I mean, where would I go that I haven't been, that I guess I'd love to spend more time in India, like kind of maybe explore India a little bit more. Maybe, I don't know, like maybe in Nepal, like trekking maybe. I'd probably like to, if I did something on a bucket list, I'd probably like to challenge myself. Yeah. But I feel pretty lucky because I feel like I've traveled quite a lot.
Nice.
And I don't care about hotels. I mean, I love coming here, obviously, but I feel like you're hardly in a hotel when you travel.
Doing a holiday,
so
right?
like I don't have a kind of hugely glamorous hotel I want to go and stay in. Or
Get out there, get in those mountains.
Yeah, I think so. Get in those, I think seeing the majesty of nature somehow.
Wow.
Always,
Wow, 3 very good answers, I have to say. Very well played. And it's been such a pleasure chatting.
Such a pleasure to talk
Thank
to you
you so much for having me in this gorgeous place. And
such a pleasure. Thank you for coming.
thank you so much for listening to that episode. I've been really looking forward to sharing that one with you. Heckfield Place was just so perfect. I can't even begin to describe to you how gorgeous it was in person. And Skye was just the chicest, calmest chef I think I've ever met. And that's nearly a wrap for 2023. And we'll be back in 2024 with many more conversations, including our first ever Curated Spaces mini-season, the London edition, which I'm incredibly excited to share with you. So join me then. I'll be back next time with more Curated Spaces.